Everyone just sit down and relax for a second. I got a couple questions for you. Do you get it? Because of the episode we're doing. Is that fun? Last question pun I'll be making. Let's get into the video. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Batmaning of. This is the show where we take the characters of the DC universe and we make a Batman adjacent movie for them. Without Batman, it's just characters but getting a movie. It's just a thematic title. You get it, it's fun. We're doing a fun one today. One that I'm super excited to do because this is kind of like the genre of film I'd want to play with the most. This is like my world, my stories, the stuff I like. I just did a huge Philip Marlowe binge recently. I love this stuff. We're talking about The Question. In particular, we're doing both of them today because my pitch involves both of them because we have two characters who are symbiotic in a weird way and are both really cool. The Questions, Vic Sage and Renee Montoya, two characters that are really fun, really worth talking about, and so cool to exploit and just enjoy. I love this type of hero. I love this type of character that is just like that pulpy, mysterious energy akin to something like The Shadow, where it's just like this dark figure lurking in the corner asking these questions. But when it comes to like these characters, in particular like Vic in the older sense, it's this guy who is just paranoid and this low-level vigilante, just a guy in a suit with no face. There's just something so like classic and interesting about that aesthetic that leads to so many great stories. Every time there's a Vic Sage appearance in a book, I get giddy because I just think this character is so fun and fascinating and you could go to so many cool ways with him. He's so unique, and I know there's like a huge soft spot for him with a bunch of writers and artists where it's like you could do so many cool things, go to so many interesting narratives, but all kind of like sticks to that big idea of like the conspiracy theorist, the huge identity thing. The cartoon played that up in like a joking manner. You could go down some dark rabbit holes where this guy's got tabs on every major event. There's something so cool about having that figure in a huge comic book world where you can exploit it and do so many creative and interesting things with. It is such a unique character. That era of detective, gumshoe, noir stories where he spawns from is so fantastic to me. Just makes for some great stuff, and just seeing his evolution and all the other iterations. Vic is so cool. He is just like a warm, caring, strong figure of intrigue and regret and stories, and there's so much to his personality and the way he portrays himself. It is such a cool concept, and one I am genuinely surprised no one has attempted to put into a movie before, because that concept just works. It's just a detective weird guy. Is it because an actor doesn't want to hide their face? Come on, quit being selfish. Your voice should be your selling feature. Vic is great, but I know there's going to be a whole generation of people, and I am one of them, who are Renee Montoya fans. She is just as important to this mythos. It's one of the, in my opinion, I should say, is one of the best uses of like a legacy character where you have this woman who's already established in the world, who her relationships are with in Gotham City, who she is dating. She has her own history, an established universe, and then she just is thrust into this larger world with this guy. It's like, you have to do something now. Guess what? You're a part of something bigger. I need you to help me with this thing. That's all we're going to do here, lady. We're just going to get thrust in there and great. And then I think in more recent time, Montoya has kind of been like thrust into the sidelines of certain things. Whenever she pops up as The Question, you're just letting her be the more vigilante as opposed to like the conspiracy theorist that Vic was. And those two just have a great dynamic where it's like, here's this older man who's a little bit more gruff and confused. And she's like, not like a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young girl. She's like, okay, I see the realism thing. You're going for like these dark corners and there's like a hidden figure above everything. That's not what reality is. People are just assholes, and that dynamic just plays off each other well. I completely understand how somebody could say they like Renee more than they like Vic, or I can see the other side of that coin where Vic's more popular than Renee, but they're both really cool. And it's one of the best examples of just like, have her wear the OG outfit when it's a girl, and it just looks great, and it's so cool. And those two, it just makes for some great stuff. Like, those characters you could do so many different stories with. You can have so much fun playing with them. So many great aesthetics. It's all about, like, a narration and the dialogue of just these beautiful, powerful people in this city doing some crazy conspiracy things. And isn't that just what we want to see from these characters? I know people have their pre-established, like, notions of what they are, but if we're really going to do a detective thing with The Question and just make that movie popular, you want the classic thriller paranoia. There's a evil around every corner. It's part of something bigger than you. Nobody can be trusted vibe. That's what I wanted to lean into so bad. And it's one of the types of stories I personally love. I love a good story like this where we just follow, like I said, Marlowe on a journey as he's just wandering the streets. I love that stuff. And you can do that a lot when it comes to Vic and Renee. So that's why I'm like, we got to make this movie. And I just couldn't pick one of them. I think one of their best stories involves both of them. And that's going to lead into my pitch. My pitch has a lot to do with like the conception of these two really meeting and becoming an identity in 52, but it's not going to be explicitly 52. When it comes to like on-screen interpretations of these characters, Renee's got a lot more play than we've seen for Vic. Vic has had none, right? I can't remember if there ever was one. If there was, it's not worth talking about. But then you have Renee, who's had a couple of chances. We've had Victoria Cartanija, who has played her on both Gotham and Batwoman. And you're like, okay, she was fine. Not a one that stands out. You don't really think about it, but she did fine. Not that's the question, though. That's the other thing. We haven't tried the question for that yet. But we also had Rosie Perez, who maybe 20 years ago would have been a good fit. I don't think Renee has the perfect energy of a Rosie Perez, but I understand what they were going for that character. Not necessarily what I would have done, but okay. If that's what it took to get there, sure. But again, not as the question. What are we waiting for? I think we just need to jump right into this one because there is something to enjoy, something to say, and we're going to just have a great time. I just love these characters. I want the world to love them too. They're just so fantastical and so interesting. This is the type of story we need more of, just low budget, on the ground. Just put a blank face over your own face and you talk it up and shit. That's what I love to see. My vibe is The Big Sleep, one of my favorite movies that I've seen recently. It's such a good movie. I always say, Chinatown's like Batman. Well, my question movie's The Big Sleep. We're following this detective doing this different stuff and the people that become intertwined with it. So, I did say there was some 52 in there. Let's get into my pitch for a question movie. Now, who do you start with? Who is our lead in this? I'm going to start with Vic because Vic is kind of like the older one. He, again, is like a news anchor, a newscaster. You could just do reporter on the streets, but he's kind of being maligned by his organization or like the parent company and studio he works for because his own personal politics are being drawn into the field where he suddenly is being like, well, there's a huge rise in crime that mimics the patterns of this old story that connects to like this ancient biblical text and all that kind of stuff. The Crime Bible, which is a real Bible in the DC universe. It's like the opposite of the Christian Bible. It's the Crime Bible. That is like the thing that Vic is saying is real, but the public's like, you've been on too many forums, buddy. That's not a real thing. Well, he decides he's going to be the question and dress up at night and investigate this himself because nobody else is going to do it. And that leads him on the path of this stray cop in the city named Renee Montoya, who is starting to see a rise in crime in her own way and realize there is a secret connection here that she doesn't understand. Things get a little more intense. Things get a little more demonic. I don't want it to be like, oh man, here's the devil coming to kill them. It's like, okay, this is like seriously a cultish thing that is happening. There are worshippers of the devil and Satan that are investigating this weird shit. And then you have the question as a vigilante show up, and then you have Renee as a cop show up. And it just leads to them working together into the realization that maybe Renee is going to have to adopt the identity of the question in order to save Vic. In order to understand this world better, she has to go undercover as a woman with no face. Is there a conspiracy going on? Is there a larger figure that's connecting all this crime to something? We're hitting the streets talking to like these local gangs, these reporters who don't understand what's going on, these like cops that may be on the take, this huge conspiracy that's covering everything up. Two forces coming together, the news anchor with dark theories about who's running the world, the 1%, and you have this cop who is just born and raised in this city who understands there is something here that is not here before. And maybe it's a cultish book that a certain gang, whatever gang you want it to be, has gotten its hands on, and it's just going into a deadly, terrifying, frightening direction. That's all you really need. That's all you really need to set this up is that type of evil, that type of destruction. Now, when it comes to casting these characters, I had a great time. I wanted to find somebody who could lead a franchise if we want to do a bunch of these, and someone with weird vibes. For my Renee Montoya, I went with Sophia Carson, a younger actress who has proven herself time and time again. She has the right energy I'm looking for, the right kind of facial structure I'm looking for, and just somebody I think could do a really good job in a world like this. But when it comes to my Vic Sage, I wanted to find a guy who looks greasy. I went with Penn Badgley. I know that's a weird choice. People want it for other stuff. But just looking at the picture of this guy, he seems like he'd be on television saying some weird shit about like a secret book that the world owns that tells you what's wrong with God. You know, he has like that kind of vibe about him. They're closer in age than I think a lot of interpretations are for these characters. But that could just lead into like the insanity of what's really going on. So that is who I want for both these roles, Sophia and Penn. They'd be great. And for a director, I wanted to find somebody who has worked in the genre before. I found Timothy Van Patten, who has worked on shows like Boardwalk Empire and Perry Mason, two shows that emulate the kind of vibe and structure I'm looking for. Again, we're not dropping $100 million on this. We just need a solid 30, put these actors in a blank face, have them talk their asses off, and boom, you have a show, or you have a movie, I should say, about a bunch of cultish freaks getting a Bible, and you have some weird faceless people after them. That's all you need for the question. Paranoia, cults, weird stuff, faceless people. That's it. That's the question, and the characters are great. Please read a question book. 52 is a great place to start, or there was the Black Label book with Vic Sage, The Many Deaths of Vic Sage. Great stuff. But until you read those, I'm going to be signing off, so thank you guys for watching this episode of The Batmaning of. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Hive, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.